I think it all starts like with the people that surround you. Even though it's exposed on the internet, I think if you have that type of foundation that shows you what's left and what's right or what's wrong and what's right, you'll know what to do, even regardless if something's in your face.
Yeah, I guess I agree with him. I think that like if you're just taught at home that you don't that getting involved in the violence isn't the right thing to do, then it being allowed on the internet won't be much of a problem.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I agree too. I just feel like it depends on the person. If you're raised in a household where you're taught morals, then it won't matter what you see. You're just gonna do what you.
I feel as if you know what's right, as Wesley said, if you know what's right, you're able to distinguish what's wrong. In terms of knowing what your morals are and what you were raised upon, then I believe that peer pressure, as in terms of internet, it shouldn't affect your personal beliefs.
Anyone in the back want to take that up?
Hi, my name is Femi Adigan. I was part of the summer Columbians program. I personally feel that there are two types of ways a teen can be impacted by violence since they're already exposed to it, negatively and positively. Negatively in the sense of that because violence is glorified a lot lately. It's not just the fact that, everyone sees violence, but it's just how you see it. Like, it tends to be glorified. So if you can, are you able to get at them young and teach them that this is nothing to be glorified as, so when they see it, they know it's wrong, then that's when, it'll be impacted positively in the sense that they'll know, what not to do, rather than, all these people glorifying violence, or it's cool to shoot him, or it's cool to this, like that. It needs to be basically made known that violence is not something that's cool. It's something that's, wrong, rather than something that's positive.
This question is for you, Lily. When you heard about the gunshots, were you afraid you were going to get shot?
I went with my dad, and I was originally going to go interview this guy who worked for Ceasefire, and when I got there, they said that he had been sent out on a call and that there had been a shooting a few blocks away. And my dad suggested that I ask if I could go meet him there. So we were kind of driving around, and at first I was kind of scared, but my dad said that it would be a really good reporting opportunity. So I decided to go, and it didn't seem so scary while we were going over there, but once we kind of got there, I saw all the people standing around the scene of the crime, watching and waiting to see what had happened, and I had never been exposed to anything like that before, and it's just kind of I don't know, it was just I was a little scared, but it was also I think it was really eye-opening because I didn't really I knew that there were shootings and that there was violence around my city, but I didn't live I was fortunate enough to live in a place where I wasn't around that every day, and so being around that was I guess it just did something to me.
This next question is for the doctors. How do you feel when you see a person of any age come in with a gunshot wound due to gangs?
Well, I think when I'm taking care of the patient, I'm in the zone. I know what to do. There's protocols and there's things that we do. I think the difficult part is after we do what we need to do with the patient, we have to talk to the family. And sometimes it doesn't work out that well. And there's no protocol for that. We have to sometimes be the bearer of the worst news of their lives. I'm proud of what we do, but it's also very tough, and I think that people have to understand that violence really reaches more than just the actual victim.
Dr. Sheehan?
Well, it's an awful thing to see a child shot. I deal with children, and you know how devastating it is for them and their families, of course. But it's just a little bit surreal, because I didn't train to be a doctor in a war zone. I trained to be a doctor in Chicago. But it is like a war zone for our kids. And even the kids that are supposedly the instigators that might happen to get shot too, they're just kids that got themselves in a bad situation. There's very few that are, you know, sociopaths or whatever psychological diagnosis you want to get. So it's just, as Angela said, a loss of really two lives in some ways, and even more as it ripples through a community.
As we live in a day where youth don't listen to elders, advisors, or their own parents, how can we as teens advise other teens to stop violence?
I think in today's society, I think like when we see things, like we may not learn that moment, but eventually we'll learn. But I think the key to that is just convincing each other that, okay, if it can happen to me, it can happen to you. Because at the end of the day, I mean, just like Lily said at the beginning of the story, like sometimes we think things will happen to us, but at the end of the day, we all human. So I think if you bring it to people like that, they'll learn from it and apply it to their lives and make a change for themselves.
Anyone else want to take that?
I feel as if we could teach our, like, sometimes it's an anger issue or a revenge issue that the teens have that results in violence. And sometimes I try to tell my friends, because I have a lot of friends with anger management issues, I try to teach them and tell them sometimes it's not always worth it to try to go back and get that person and what they've done. They'll realize they'll now, sooner or later, that what they did was not worth what they did to you, and you don't have to go back and try to give that person back, because you can mess up your entire life off one itty bitty situation that is not worth it.
Do any of you all schools have peer counseling?
My school actually this week started an anger management circle for girls.
I feel like a way to stop kids from not listening to their elders is basically have structure, because what's missing in a lot of these teens' lives is structure. They're on their own. That's how a lot of people join gangs. So I feel as if a way for teens to get each other to listen to each other and stop and have them aware of violence. I believe that you should educate and enlighten the ignorance of what is happening in communities. Not ignorance, and I don't refer to it as stupidity. I refer to it as the not knowing, because that's the real definition. So I feel like if we enlighten the ignorant and not keep pushing it aside as we are used to doing, then that can have a big impact on all of our lives, not just the teens.
This is a two-part question. If anxiety, fear, and depression is a big factor in violence, A, why are all the mental health programs closing? I would assume that this person means in the city of Chicago. And B, why would police arrest and convict a child in stress and grief reacting to his murdered friend and not put him in counseling? I think that second part is probably for you, Angela. But you want to take the first part?
I actually want to give a somewhat different answer to that. I mean, I think that's a great question, and I think that there's a lot that can be done to improve mental health services, and actually, hopefully, health reform will help with that. But I think there's also a community dimension. I think that, you know, where I live, people are very aware of mental health issues and are at least sometimes more open about it and willing to seek help. And I think in a lot of communities in Chicago, there's such a stigma around mental health issues that we have to somehow find a way to get past, because there's a lot of people who are suffering in a variety of ways. Maybe it's depression, maybe it's post-traumatic stress, and people don't seek help as much as they probably should, and we don't embrace each other when we see that our neighbors and friends are suffering in this way. And I think that's something that we can do as peers and as neighbors. Say it's okay, and this is actually I think where I think pediatricians play such a critical role in that, because people will talk to you and will tell you that, and I think that's such a great asset, and where the public health model is so powerful. But I think as a community we have to understand there's a lot of people with mental health issues who, and there are resources out there that people can use, and people need to use them more. So I think there's a bunch of other issues in there, but I think it's really important that we support our relatives, our friends, our parents, our children. When people have a problem, they need to seek help, and there's ways that they can be helped.
I think in regards to the public health issue and the criminal piece of it, for my son specifically, my husband died when my son was 4 years old, massive heart attack at home, of which my son witnessed. He has been diagnosed with post-traumatic. But when it comes, in my belief, is when it comes to the criminal portion of it, it goes to kind of what Dr. Sheehan was saying. It's kind of like a separation of church and state. Yeah, you committed a crime. Yeah, you're mental, but because we live in 2 different houses, we can't deal with your mental issue. You have to get on our side first, and then we'll see if you're really sick in the head, and then we'll deal with you. But by the time that happens, you've wrapped up your record, and they see you as a criminal, and you have a track record. So you really must not be sick. You really must just have behavioral issues or law issues. So you kind of get stuck in, as I see it, the separation of church and state, because the law wants what they want. The police have their issues to deal with. The mental piece of it, the doctor has their side, but a lot of times some families are not fortunate enough to see that there are issues or to get the help that the child needs to know there's an issue. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if it results in a criminal record. That's how the world is.
Excuse me. You know, I've been sitting here and really bothered by something when it comes to this violence thing. I'm recalling that our children are being asked to report crimes and to, in essence, well, you know, people call it snitching, or I agree with, you know, Mr. Hold on, you know, what snitching really is. But you know, what comes to mind for me is the incident with the policeman that beat up the woman behind the bar, and the message that code of silence sends to our young people and to our population in general. You know, is that we live in a society where certain kind of violence is condoned and certain kind of violence is protected, and that's a double standard to me. You know, and you know something, I wish the city and the other police departments throughout the country would really deal with that issue, because we know all policemen are not bad, just like all kids on the street are not bad. But we do need to eradicate that element, or to deal with that element that is. And it just sends a double standard message for me, and it's been eating at me for the last 10 minutes sitting here listening about this violent thing when I saw this on the news the other day. So I think that our system needs to check itself too. You know, our system that's in charge of establishing programs to help deal with violence is condoning on the other end in terms of the court system, and I don't like that.
How can they prevent being in a gang if being at home isn't safe? I was going to direct that one to Diane.
I must say too, really, I mean, when are we going to become the priority? Not only with the president, with the governor, with the mayor, with everybody, but within ourselves. Our clinics are closing because we're not the priority. Our young people are killing each other because they're not a priority. They're not only not a priority within the realm of their neighborhoods and their schools, but they're not a priority within our systems. They're just not. When are we gonna get it that they got to become the priority for the violence to be even impacted? When are we gonna get it that we've gotta make them a priority? Our children are our priorities. How can a kid not be in a gang? Is that what you were saying?
Well, if the parent, a lot of talk has been about parental involvement, but if it's not safe at home, or I'll take it a step further,
well,
parents aren't involved or there, how,
well,
what kind of intervention?
Then when they're not, I'm a resident and I'm a community person. So I want to take it up. Maybe I don't have time. Maybe I got a busy life. And maybe I just don't want to do it. But as a community, that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to take up the slack. I'm not going to, even if I see a parent who I know is not doing the right thing, and that kid is out there, well, who's my obligation to? It's to the kid. It's to the child. I want to live on my block in peace. I want my kids to be able to play in the front. If I see a young man who's not disciplined, who's not nurtured, who's not loving, what does it take for me to do that? So we all can live in peace, just because his parents won't do it. It's my right to do that. And I want to do that. And we all should. I thought that's what community was for. So that kid wouldn't have to go to a gang. A gang is a family. We might not want to look at it like that, but it is to that young person. It's a negative family. So why can't we step in? What does it take for us to do that? I don't get it. From the president down, I don't get it. Why are we not making our young people a priority? How many more have to die before they become a priority? How many more has to be killed before we realize that they're doing that so they can get attention? It's like our dirty little secret in America. I just want to say that. We really have to do something.
Marcus, because you had that experience, what do you think could have been done for you not to take the path that you did, given your family situation?
Just a solid model to look up to. Like I say, lack of guidance influenced my decision making. And in my wholesome, childlike frame of mind, there was never a gang, there was never drugs. It hit me like a rude awakening, you know, once I hit 13, 14, and I really stepped outside. So I can just remember just having nowhere to turn, you know, nobody to listen to me. If I can share this with everybody, at 13, 14 years old, I was a regular on Brewster's Places series. I had things going on. I was doing Wonder Bread commercials, and I was just active. I was energetic. But at home, there was a situation that wasn't taken care of. So anger, bitterness, neglect, all of that made me turn to the darkest thing that was closest to me, and that was the streets. So, and the rest is just a story of, you know, could it have been prevented? I don't know.
But just to push back some, you know, Diane Latiker, Kids Off the Block, she opened up her home. She's been a CNN Person of the Year. She's an anomaly for the work that she does. I mean, there are people like Angela doing it on an individual basis, but I mean, you turned your home literally into a youth center. Everybody isn't capable to do that. Everyone's not going to do that. If you have a community like Marcus came from, where there were no role models, there was no one to look up to, what is the alternative there if there aren't those type of people to look up to even in that community? What happens next?
I think there are those type of people in every community, but they don't speak up and speak out. Previous to the incident that I spoke of back in 2007, I believe it was, we had the automatic race, and I was literally pissed because we were getting shootings and everything was happening, and it turned out that my niece actually was shot in the head. She was pregnant at the time, but no one would listen because I was a one-man team. So what I did on my own, I did 2,000 flyers, and I took my kids. They said, why are you doing too much? I don't care. This has got to stop. And we went door to door with 2,000 flyers, and we commissioned everyone to come out because my goal was we need a camera at that time. There are too many shootings. No one knows what's going on. No one's talking. No one's saying anything. And through my efforts of doing that, I drew attention to myself. So people knew that I was there. Before that, yeah, people on the block knew. They know who she is. She's just talking a bunch of crap. But when you speak up and speak out and you draw attention positively to yourself, then people know they can come to you and you're going to help them do what they need to do. You're confident. Yes, she can tell me what to do, or he can tell me what to do. And when each one reaches one, then I may be touching him, then I know Marcus had this experience, and you just confided in me about what you went through. I can hook you up with Marcus. I can hook you up with Mr. Hope. I can do these things because you chose to speak out and draw attention. I think that's one of the solutions.
Jason, I think this question might go for you. What happens when a person is doing good and making up from their past and one day are wrongly convicted and put in jail, particularly when it comes to young males?
If they wrongly convicted?
Right, like maybe they did bad in the past and they're making up for it, but they're wrongly convicted. Do you see cases like that? Or does anyone else see instances like that?
Well, in juvenile probation, what I've seen in the last 10 years, being there, a lot of our kids, they plead guilty to a lot of their offenses. I feel like maybe a lot of the kids feel pressure. They may be held in a detention center, not knowing that it's going to eventually come to an end, so therefore they feel that pressure just to plead guilty to their case. I have had some kids during the course of me doing my investigation actually say to me, yeah, Officer Smith, I just pleaded guilty only because, I wanted to go home. Officer Smith, I was told to plead guilty. In that instance, me not being an attorney, I would refer them back to their public defender. Their public defender probably needs to either have that child, take back their plea, go through the process if they truly believe that they only pleaded guilty because of the pressure. So that would be my advice to anyone who actually didn't commit that offense, is to go through that process and let the public defender know, or in the area that I work in, especially North and South Lawndale, a lot of my clients, or the population that I work with, they don't have a private attorney, so they always have a public defender.
What does a white person know about violence between young black teens if you're not around it?
I have one comment real quick for that.
With what I just said, or
no,
with Jason?
You said I got to get this one off my chest.
Okay.
So in regards to, he is correct. A lot of kids do plead guilty because they want to get it out the way. They don't want to hang in limbo of knowing what their sentencing might be. I've had experiences with public attorney and private attorney in the criminal arena. My son had a case a few years ago, had a public defender, went back and forth. We don't know when he's going to get out, although he wasn't guilty. I hired a private attorney, he was out the next day. This last case that he had, we were going back and forth, and I spoke with the public defender and I said, well, what would you advise him to do? Well, he's my client, whatever he wants to do. Excuse me, hello? Did you not look at the case? Did you not talk to the witnesses? No, I didn't have time to do that. They do not defend the kids like they should, as if they were getting the money in their pocket. They're there to get a check. There may be a few good ones, but in my experience, and I've experienced 5, they're there to get a check. next case, please. They don't return the phone calls, they don't follow up with the parents, don't check with the witnesses. They're there to get a check.
Well, I want to thank you all for being a very good audience tonight. I'm going to switch questions and do something a little bit more uplifting and solution-oriented for our last question. And this is for the youth. What do you think teachers in schools should be teaching and or doing to help stop the violence?
I think they should probably have like more realistic courses, probably not exactly classes, but like workshops or something in which teens can learn about violence and even like sex ed and stuff, because I just feel like we learn from that by experiencing it and not literally by having someone tell us about it, because if we're taught about it or given a heads up of what to expect, all the negatives to expect, then maybe we can deal with it in a different way when we do experience it.
I agree with that. I think that schools should develop more after-school programs to give an alternative to kids to spend their time other than in dangerous areas or negatively influential areas.
I personally feel that they actually are after school programs and things like that are set up in a decent amount of schools, but it's just getting the students to actually be willing to go there and to actually be willing to want to be there. Like, I'm not saying I have necessarily incentives or things of that sort, but just something that grabs their attention, because sometimes like it'll be somebody there trying to tell them about violence or something, but they're like, man, you can't relate to me, you don't understand. So maybe if you bring in someone who truly understands like situations they're going through or what's necessarily happening, like more or less than just a teacher who's trying to help, because sometimes that may not be enough because they have good intentions, but their actions just won't reflect that because they can't really relate to what's going on with the student herself.
I think that it's not really about what they teach. It's more about the teachers and how they do that. And so if they're doing it in a bad, negative way, then the student will, or the person will not really see it as something that they would like to do or is attractive to them. And so I think that instead of focusing on what to teach, I think they should focus on who's teaching what.
I agree with what Andrew said, cause like in the area I live in the Garfield Park, Humboldt Park area. That area is one of the highest crime rates, has one of the highest crime rates in Chicago. So of course there are going to be a few after-school programs or violence workshops around there. I've actually been to a few, and it's just like some people are just telling you what to do. Don't do this, don't do that. Actually try to reach out and see what the issue is. See exactly what their issue is. Don't make it a general issue. See what's that person's issue to see if you can try to help them. Don't make it a general thing. Everybody tries to make it seem like it's general. It's not general. It's individual.
Addressing the previous question, asking what a white kid knows about violence in your neighborhoods, yes, I'm not exposed to it every day as you possibly are, but if you would have been a little less ignorant and actually looked at, we're not writing about what we experience every day, we're writing about what we've found, and I don't see how that's any different from what any of the other 4 people up here have done, so, yeah.
Okay, about the education thing, I think that if teachers, because I get that their job is to teach, but if they did more than teach and like reached out to their students and tried to connect with them, they could also maybe steer them away from the path they're going, because some kids when they go home, they get parents who don't, tell them they're good at anything, And if you go to school, you have a teacher telling you you're smart and that you're gonna be something, then that can also help you want to be something, even if your parents aren't telling you that.
All right, I'm going to turn this back over to Brenda now.
Thank you, everyone. Natalie, thank you so much. WBZ Radio, our stellar moderator, for directing the conversation and hitting the key points. And I love the way you ended with the kids. I want to thank Celia Daniels and the I-Team here who have poured their hearts and skills into this effort for 6 intense weeks. Here they are right here. Congratulations to all of you. To our speakers on stage who took the time to be here tonight and who were also very generous with their time. When you read the white paper, make sure you get one. Most of the guests on this stage were interviewed by our teams. Dr. Pollock, Ms. Latiker, Roosevelt Bono opened his community event, Dr. Tom Todd, Dr. Sheehan, everyone has been interviewed and it is in the white paper. And also make sure the 5 points, the solutions, the remedies, as the team said, are in the back of this white paper. So make sure you get one when you're leaving. And as Diane Latiker said, it's time to stop talking and start doing. I remember at the YCC PBS, that's what you said. We've begun doing, as some of us have said here, and that's why you're here. And yes, there is much more work to do. Nancy's already thanked our funders, Mark Hallett, the Dow Jones News Fund, Eric Rodriguez, the art director who laid out the white paper at last minute. He also laid out the magazine R Word. Make sure you get a copy of that. Thank you, Eric. Chris Richard, who's been here taking up the questions and holding hands. Chris Richard, the business manager of the journalism department. Ahmed Hamad, the guy who did the film. He followed the kids the entire 6 weeks, you guys. He's in class, he goes to Columbia, but he took the time to go to the community meetings on the south side, to go out to Diane Latiker's Kids Off the Block headquarters. Ahmed, thank you very much. And last but not least, my colleagues here at Columbia Links. Without your expertise and commitment, all this would not be possible. And I'd like to introduce 2 of them now, and they're Sue Lau, who's our program manager, and Kevin Obamanu. Can you please come up?
Thank you, Brenda, and thank you everybody here. Fabulous ideas tonight, and thank you for sharing them with us. Just a couple of quick points about links. We're about to start our January program, our Winter Academy. We're excited to announce that the theme for reporting and writing this time is giving, pay it forward. So our teens are going to be writing about the many ways Chicago youth and adults are out there every day using their time and energy to make lives better. Links also just had a total of 171 student applications for this winter program, nearly 100% increase over last year's applications. So we know that this program is really striking a chord with teachers, students, and parents. We're very thankful about that. Also, our academies are now engaged in news literacy, the McCormick Foundation's new emphasis to help assure that young people become discerning users of the vast array of information in their world and become accurate, objective reporters. So please take a copy of our brand new R Word magazine. This is a compilation of the student essays and articles over the past year. There are more stories in here about violence, about health and fitness, about teens connecting with others in their community to make their lives better, and an array of other different articles. Also, please visit our website, www.columbialinks.org. You'll find all of these articles. The Don't Shoot, I Want to Grow Up, I Must Grow Up magazine on there, as well as videos, podcasts, and newscasts. So thank you again.
And in the spirit of giving, we have a raffle for our Links students who are present today, not only the ones that are on the stage, but also the one that is in the audience. So you guys are probably wondering, why do I have all these things in my hand, and why do I have this H&M bag in my hand and all of this craziness up here? Well, it's because we really do like to reward our students for all the work that they do. I mean, they do a lot of work. They're also in school. Many of them have extracurriculars activities, and they're really dedicated to this program and the work they do. So we like to treat them to things every now and then. So the first thing I'm going to raffle off is a $25 Chipotle gift card. By the way, these gift card ideas I actually got from the students. So, so I thought that I had to always think like, what would they like, you know? And I know things I would like, but I definitely got these ideas from the students. So I'm gonna go into my little bag here, and this goes to Sam Marie. So you can get this from me afterwards, okay? And Sam Marie, why don't you stand up? Sam Marie was in our spring 2012 program. Thank you. Okay, next I'm raffling off a $25 H&M gift card. I know a lot of you love to dress well, as you can tell from looking on the stage. So let's see who I got in here. Oh, and this goes to Alan. And I can give this to you now. And last but not least, we have an iPod Touch. So this is a big one. And let's see who will get this. This goes to Kyler. Kyler, congratulations. Here you go. And again, thank you guys so much for being here.
And you guys, before we let you go, I forgot to give a shout out to the men in the red vests. Lucius Moore and his team from the United Methodist Men. Lucius runs the South Suburban Organization of United Methodist Men, and they're doing a new outreach. Marcus is wearing a red vest. Marcus Carruthers, the young man on the stage, and Lucius and your red vest men, can you please stand up and take a bow? Thank you so much for the work you're doing. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, you guys, without further ado, thank you so much for tonight. Thank you. Bye.